Good afternoon, and welcome to our first meeting of September. We have a few people in the audience tonight, and hopefully we have a few more watching us on Electric City Television. It's live. The invocation tonight will be given by Councilman John Roberts, and I will lead us in respects to the flags. Please rise.
Our Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight to ask your blessings on this city, its employees and leaders. Tonight, as we discuss the business needs of our city, I ask for your guidance in the decisions we make tonight that would be beneficial for the greater good of all of our citizens and our community. Also, Lord, with so much turmoil in our nation, I ask for your ever-guiding hand to touch us with the gift of peace and unity and help us to break the barriers that divide us so we can stand together as one great nation. As always, we ask that you continue to bless our military, police, firefighters, first responders as they place their lives in harm's way to protect all of us. In your heavenly name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The minutes of our August 24th meeting have been distributed. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Not hearing any. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
First by Mr. Newton.
Second.
Second by the Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes of August 24th passed unanimously. We got 3 items of old business, and the first item of old business is request consideration of an ordinance to rezone 1912 East Calhoun Street from R5 single-family residential to RM10 multifamily residential. Mr. McKeon.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, 3 items before you in old business on planned items, and were previously heard by the Planning Commission on September the 1st, and Maurice McKenzie, our Planning Development Director, will go over the details with you. Mr. McKenzie.
Thank you. The first request tonight before you is to request consideration of ordinance to rezone 1912 East Calhoun Street from R5 single-family residential to RM10 multifamily residential. And this property was annexed into the city 2 years ago. And when it was annexed into the city, the owner of the property was proposing to construct 14 single-family houses on the 3.5-acre parcel of land. Since that time, the property ownership has changed. The new property owner wishes now to construct duplexes on the property. As of now, approximately 9 duplex buildings, which equates to 18 duplex units, are proposed for the site. And on the property now, there's vacant single-family dwellings, and on either side of this property, you have 2 high-density single-family residential subdivisions, Cobblestone East and Cobblestone West. There were concerns raised regarding the potential for excessive drainage, site runoff from this property and really in surrounding areas. And as we go through the site plan review process, if this is rezoned, our engineering department, our stormwater staff will review that to ensure that all detention is engineered properly. We also spoke to the applicant about this, and it is already in their plan to over-engineer detention in order to address any drainage-related issues that may be in place there. This did go before the Planning Commission last week on September 1st, and the Planning Commission recommended approval. So if you have any questions for me, I'll be glad to answer them. I don't know if the applicant is in the audience, but I don't think so. But
Okay.
any questions for me?
Thank you. Questions, comments? Mr. Chapman?
So the 3 items in the boards for old business are in the district I serve. And the main thing, I was one of the ones who brought up concern about the drainage issue. Do you happen to have, Mr. McKenzie, the plan that was shown to the Planning Commission that shows how they're going to place it?
Yeah, I do. It's just a general drawing, but it does give you a perspective on what they're looking at. Let me get this up for you. Again, this is obviously not the official drawing.
It just helps represent.
Yeah, absolutely. This is Calhoun Street. This is the entrance, and you see these red blocks are the duplex buildings. The back side of the property is where the proposed attention is going to be located.
So that's my primary concern is primarily everything surrounding it is elevated slab on grade. And so, and the property falls off fairly quickly after about, I don't know, partially the way down where the road would have intersected it went straight across.
Yeah.
So I noticed that it says the city will ensure the site is well engineered to handle any potential runoff, water runoff and issues from the development. My concern is that, although what they're planning and what they've done on Simpson Road is positive, it's got, it's turned out nice, it's brick. But during construction is also as big a concern as after construction, because the site that they did on Simpson Road had a fair amount of water runoff and mud running down the street from the previous residents behind it. So, we need to make sure that they double silt fence, they over-engineer, and that we're taking grave concerns in making sure that they don't have any flooding issues, because there's no elevation change for them for a crawl space to get flooded or anything. It's their livable space.
Good comments. I'll make sure we pass those along to our engineers.
Anything else, Mayor? Ms. Roberts?
I also had a couple of questions. The T-shaped driveway configuration, does that meet our fire and public works requirements?
Again, this is very preliminary. I did run this general concept by our fire department, and they were generally okay with it. Again, we need to see something more official, but in general terms, yes.
Also, is this less or more dense than the surrounding cobblestone east and cobblestone west?
Actually, at the planning commission meeting, the applicant did sort of an overlay or explained about an overlay he did compared to the other developments beside it, and it looks like it's less dense. Don't have the exact lot size numbers. I can get those for you, but Cobblestone East and Cobblestone West, they're sitting on less than 5,000 square foot lots, more like 4,000 square feet, to be honest.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Mayor, I make a motion, we accept it as presented under the conditions that we greatly supervise the stormwater issues.
So, first by Mr. Chapman,
Second.
second by the Mayor Pro Tem. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes on the first reading.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'd also like to mention that I had no phone calls in opposition to this request as well.
Very good. Our second item of old business, request consideration of an ordinance to rezone 503 College Avenue from R15 single family residential to RM18 multifamily residential. And Ms. McKenzie, I think you're still up.
Yes, sir, thank you. And the applicant is Anderson University, and they're seeking to rezone the property to RM18 multifamily residential, which allows university-related uses. Most of the property, Anderson University's main campus, you can see in the brown, is already zoned RM18, so it matches that particular zoning classification. And this request probably looks familiar to you because a few years ago, it came before you for rezoning, but no action was taken. At that time, you asked to receive more information from the university so you could better obtain an understanding of really what the big picture is, what the overall campus master plan is for this particular area. That way you don't look at one particular piece of property of such, you can look at it from more of a comprehensive perspective. So based on the campus plan that was submitted by the applicant, the property is slated to be part of a larger parking lot, and I'll show you another graphic in a moment. But RM18 zoning would allow, since it allows university-related uses, it would allow parking lot for the university. The property is outlined here in red. It's bordered on one side, which is 501 College Avenue. That is already owned by the property. It's owned RM18 multifamily residential. Across the street is also property that's zoned multifamily residential. It's actually the parking lot behind the library. Now, the yellow that you see surrounding the balance of the property to the west and northwest, if you will, is all zoned R15, single-family residential. That's what the property is currently zoned now. I'll switch slides real quick. You can zoom in as needed, okay? So this will get us started. As part of Anderson University's master plan, they plan to create a boundary of their campus by closing a portion of Summit Avenue and College Avenue. Currently, College Avenue comes through here, connects to Summit Avenue. They propose to close off this portion and this portion. As you can see, that would give them the opportunity to create the larger parking lot that we're talking about. The property in question for rezoning tonight is located right here. That's 503 College Avenue. 501, which I mentioned a moment ago, is already zoned multifamily, is located right there. So the plan would be to demolish both those structures. Now, I mentioned that they plan to close those portions of the street. Both of those streets are state roads, so this would be a separate legal process to go through in order for them to close the streets. It would be mainly with the DOT and Anderson University. The city would have some involvement during the process, but again, most of it is between those two parties. But it's important to take into consideration when looking at this zoning, because again, we're talking about a comprehensive view here. This does have a factor in what is taking place or what they're proposing to have take place here. One other area of interest to show you, they do propose to create a visible boundary by adding more landscaping between the parking lot and College Avenue. Again, according to the applicant, this essentially creates that boundary. This is the cutoff point between the university and the residential neighborhood. And by closing those streets, it would effectively cut off much of the traffic going into this neighborhood, or it's thought to do that because it does cut off one point of access to that particular neighborhood. Last week, on September 1st, the Planning Commission did consider this request, and at the meeting, there were a number of residents in attendance that had some concerns regarding this request, and mainly it's the negative effects that the university's growth into the neighborhood could have on their neighborhood from a residential characteristic standpoint. And also Anderson University, they made a presentation as well, and they're here tonight as well, and also the residents are here. But they discussed more about their overall campus master plan and what their comprehensive view of the property is, and how this property, and also the 1226 Springdale that we'll be talking about later, how they factor into their master plan. But after deliberation, the Planning Commission did recommend approval to rezone 503 College Avenue. And at that meeting, there were some comments raised, particularly from the Ridgecrest Avenue area of things. There were some residents that felt like they were most affected by the particular rezoning and the parking lot. They were concerned that if and when this road was closed off, hey, will that add more traffic onto Ridgecrest Avenue? And it's possible we haven't done many traffic studies on that yet, but one thing Anderson University did immediately with the essential revision, there was a cut into this parking lot they had shown on their master plan. They did remove that, so that could help with traffic flow somewhat, but nonetheless, that was removed since the Planning Commission meeting. One other point that was brought up at the meeting is that this neighborhood is very walkable, and a lot of residents in the neighborhood walk the neighborhood, whether it's on the boulevard, through the Springdale area, and a concern was raised that if you close this road off, that kind of cuts off the connectivity that we have between neighborhoods. So the university, with their revised plan, it's kind of hard to see here, but you can see it in the packet. They added a multi-use pathway that connects Ridgecrest to College Avenue in hopes that that would help continue that pedestrian flow in the neighborhood is so important. Again, I'll be glad to answer any questions for you. I know the applicant is here, and also citizens from the neighborhood as well, so.
Thank you. In this particular item, A2, and maybe before council maybe asks questions of applicants or any clarification from Mr. McKenzie and others, I'd like to allow the audience, for those of you who may have come to speak in opposition. I understand there were, as Mr. McKenzie said, there were several that came to the planning commission. And so maybe before we get into our discussion, I think it would be appropriate, we've done this in the past, where we would hear from residents who oppose this particular ordinance. And so, and I know sometimes it might be an organized effort. I know sometimes there might be a spokesperson, and that's fine if we got one person, or if we want to do it individually, I'll leave that up to you. But if you would like to speak in regards to this agenda item, just come to the podium. We just ask that you say your name and where you live.
I think she,
You don't have to raise your hand. You want to come up to the podium?
so,
And the only reason I asked you to come up to the podium is that,
Is this 1226 Springdale?
no, this is the agenda item of 503
yeah, I think that
College Avenue.
they have item 3 up first on our board.
No, we're on 503 College Avenue, right?
A2.
A2.
A2. So A3 is up.
That's okay. So, any questions from council?
I have one question.
Ms. Harvey?
Mayor, I guess this is for Mr. McKenzie. In your expertise, what are the chances that they will be able to petition the state and remove that portion of the road? And I think it looks fantastic. You know, the buffering and the multi-use path, if, you know, somebody wants to walk that loop, you know, back there. But what do you think the chances, and then I can see how they're pushing everything to Boulevard and coming in on Summit, what do you think the chances of that happening?
I think a lot of the time, the considerations are, you know, how does it directly affect other property owners? But in this particular case, the roads, for the most part, I would think that the only properties that abut it are Anderson University properties. That's in their favor to have them removed. Also, there is a public input process I'm pretty certain of. Again, I'm not well versed in how it all goes through, but again, I think the public would have input as well. And I will say that I think it was in 2004, Mr. Harbin, that there was a portion of the street went through the same process. It actually went through where the Thrift Library is connected Kingsley. So we were successful in having that removed 15, 16 years ago.
So with that, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, we approve the 503 College Avenue, is rezoned to RM18.
First by Ms. Harvey.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Chapman. Any other comments, discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. John Rock, let's go to John and then Mr. Chapman.
Mr. McKenzie, I have a question. Didn't I hear along the way that some of this, the pathway and the entrances, et cetera, I know you mentioned earlier about some of the residents on Ridgecrest, but wasn't there a process, and maybe some of the AU officials can elaborate a little bit on, but there was a collaboration with the community and the neighborhood to work this, a plan out for pathway and et cetera?
That's probably a better question for university officials, but they're able to speak to that.
Repeat the question again, John.
I was asking, I know he mentioned something about Ridgecrest and some of the neighbors had given some advice. So I was asking what, because of the pathway, wasn't there a collaboration or some type of community input? And just
Sir, yes, and I'm Omar Rashad, Administration and Brand for the university. We We did meet with, there was two individuals that had expressed concern at the planning commission meeting. We met with one of them, invited them to come to campus. We walked that space with them and talked through those concerns. And so what you see is actually the version based on those recommendations from that community member. There were only two individuals that expressed concern. One lives on Boulevard and one lives on Summit. So we have not heard from anyone on Ridgecrest, but that's why we made the adjustments that you see, including including the closure of College Heights and the termination into the parking lot instead of a cut through Ridgecrest.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Chapman?
So that was one of the comments I was going to make. I appreciate the university listening to the planning commission concerns of the two residents that Jeff Roberts and myself were in attendance at the planning commission. We sat in the back and just listened, but the college did, I believe I commend them in making the adjustments to the connection to the parking lot from Ridgecrest, and then also connecting that, because to me that means a lot. But I would say that neither of those residents called me in opposition of the, and I've received no other comments or in opposition of this request, so that I'd move it forward.
Yeah, we're in discussion. Yeah, the first and second. Any other comments?
Mayor,
Mr. Roberts?
I had a couple of thoughts I just wrote down as I was thinking this through, but I know there's going to be some additional load put on the entrance off of Ridgecrest, lining up with Summit, but I see it as a minimal additional load somewhere. Just what now comes through the Springdale property now is going to be forced around. But I want to note that there are 3 entrances to this parking lot, and they can be accessed from 8 directions. So I think it can be spread out, and people are going to drive where they want to drive there, but they do have options. So I think that it will impose a minimal impact, and I think it's a reasonable request.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously on the first reading. Our third item of old business was pass consideration of ordinance to rezone 1226 Springdale Road from R15 single-family residential to RM18 multifamily residential. Ms. McKenzie?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request by Anderson University as well, and they request to rezone the property to RM18 multifamily residential in order to convert the single-family dwelling, which is located right here, to convert that into their business accounting office. This property has been in the ownership of the university since '97, and it's been used primarily for university-related housing during that time. The RM18 zoning, again, like I mentioned before, is a predominant zoning around their main portion of the campus, so it does allow university-related use. Again, this is another property that's very familiar to you. There have been requests to consider rezonings for this property several times over the years. And a couple of years ago, when this came before you, I believe it was at the same time or close to the same time when the 503 College Avenue came to you, you requested more information. You requested to see what their comprehensive view of what is taking place on the campus it would be, and so you were able to see the campus master plan that was provided to you. And again, what that does is it gives you a perspective of not just one particular piece of property, but how it fits into the balance of this section of the campus. And as far as the existing zoning in the area is concerned, RM18 zoning, which is what we're talking about tonight, is located directly behind the subject property, so it runs to the rear. Everything else, as you go toward the Springdale neighborhood and beyond, is zoned R15, single-family residential. And this property, 1226, again, is zoned that R15, single-family residential. University officials have indicated to us that the proposed office, if it is rezoned, it would be oriented in a manner to minimize any intrusion onto Springdale Road. And one piece of that is also by closing off the street but they are stating that all parking and access to the building will be from areas behind it, except for there's a handicap parking space indicated where the driveway is located as of now. But again, they would have minimal intrusion. They would preserve the single-family characteristics of the house from a visual standpoint and would not have any office-like appearance, according to universities. So that is one thing. And again, we talked about the campus master plan. If I looked this down a moment ago, but we talked about proposed landscaping. You can see where this boundary, the landscaping, how it is situated in conjunction with the subject property. And again, you can see the parking lot, the proposed parking lot we talked about a moment ago. As of the other request of last week, September 1st, the Planning Commission did consider this request as well. Again, many of the residents had similar concerns. They were concerned about the growth of the university encroaching into their single-family neighborhood and affecting the residential characteristics of that neighborhood. And it was also discussed at the Planning Commission meeting from the applicant that they will work every way possible to keep the dwelling or the office, if it is rezoned, as passive as possible, to keep it as residential as possible and to minimize any intrusion into the neighborhood. But after deliberation, the Planning Commission did recommend denial of 1226 Springdale Road. Again, applicants are here, residents are here as well. If you have any questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
As in the agenda item before, there were residents that showed at the planning commission to voice concerns, and I want to go through that same process that we just went through. Obviously, from a council point of view, we need to, if we need applicants and more questions answered from Ms. McKenzie. But I'd like to have the opportunity for the residents to come and talk on this issue. Again, this is item A3, 1226 Springdale Road.
My name is Ronnie Shaw, and I live on Springdale Road. And what I'd like to say about it is right here, right across the street, right up in here, over here is residents. Nothing, no business, all residents. These people you're gonna hear from is not gonna speak like they've been trained in public speaking, but they'll talk from their heart. They raised their children there. They buried loved ones while living there. And it's very important to us to keep that a neighborhood instead of being encroached on by business. They'll completely change our neighborhood. Our home values will decrease. I was told that by real estate agents, that we better get together and stop this mess. Or it's going to ruin our love. We have friendly people that live all up and down Springdale Road, and around the College Avenue. I have a good friend that lives on College Avenue, and he lost his spouse in a car wreck a couple of years ago. And all he can talk about is what him and his spouse has done in that house. He got me to come in the other day and look at his new kitchen floor. He said, Edna always wanted a new kitchen floor. She's gone, but he still talks about her in that house. It won't be the same. And he told me, he said, Ronnie, if they do this stuff, we're losing our community, we're losing our friends. Everything will be lost just because the college wants to stand out here in a residential neighborhood. That right there is where Springdale starts. That's the first thing a person would see when they come down Springdale. They would see that. And I know you have to be handicap accessible, and I know they have to be doing it in front. But again, we really don't want it to happen. I don't believe that in bad weather, rainy, cold, you're gonna see all these people walking from here all the way up here to that back door. I don't believe that. And it's just no way possible. If you find a good rainy, cold day, people's gonna be pulling in here and going in that front door. And if people come from out of state to get their accounts with their kids straightened out, what are they going to? The front. We've had the college, university, I'm sorry, has students in the house. And they made several promises to us about people parking on that road, loud noise from the house, and all this we'll take care of. Mr. Shaw, don't worry about it. Well, we had words, it happened. We even had a man and a girl one night in the middle of the road making out. We had, right up here on the corner, I was walking that evening and had a man and a woman having sex on that street. I mean, some things is good and some things aren't. To destroy what these people have lived in for 40 years or 45 years, it's not right. Treat them like human beings. Y'all don't want that in your neighborhood. And I'm gonna leave it at that, but it'll be the biggest mistake I've ever made to do that to a citizen of this city.
Thank you,
Please
Mr.
don't.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Appreciate your comments.
Would you please let me stay seated and let me stay seated?
You go right ahead, ma'am.
I'm Jane Stovall, and my husband Bob and I have lived at 1136 Springdale Road for 48 years. We've raised our children and our grandchildren there, and the homes on Springdale are well built, they're well maintained, and they vary from 1,500 square feet to 6,000 square feet. If you're from Anderson, you're familiar with Hillcrest subdivision, and the Sullivan family that developed it. It's one of the best neighborhoods in town, and, we have the 4 large churches there, the hospitals, the restaurants, the bank, all of us are within walking distance. And this is what makes our town great. This is what Clemson and Greenville have realized, and they're spending billions just to get back to that point. And we all participate in Anderson. We do all of our business in Anderson. And we like living in our neighborhood. And Anderson University has been blessed. It has hundreds of acres to expand out Highway 29 north and Williamston Road and many more directions. They don't need this one house at the beginning of Springdale Road. They say it's for the, just when the zoning is changed, so is our neighborhood. All the walkers and runners, 20 to 30 children that ride bikes and play on that street, it's like an old neighborhood. It's like life used to be. And we don't want it destroyed. We want to keep it. But none of us want to go to college. This is our home. And we just don't need that possibility. I like the idea of closing the road off, and we will agree with that. But rezoning that one lot will not make a bit of difference to Anderson College, but it will affect from there over to Haley Road, 55 families. We on Springdale felt like our council has let us down. I've been to every zoning meeting just about that we've got with the college. Most of we have not opposed to, but our road hasn't been paved in 50 years. It is in the life of even the college is paved here. And we just want to keep our old, well-cared for neighborhood. It's fun. We want to keep Anderson as a small town with not just doing the old houses that need to be replaced, but we want to keep our neighborhoods good too.
Thank you, Ms. Stovall. And appreciate your comments. Anybody else Can you come up to the mic, man? And the only reason I say if you're able to, there are people that are listening on TV also.
Well, I'd rather sit here if you don't mind.
No.
I have a bad leg.
No, it's okay. I got a bad one too. You go right ahead.
I live at 1226 Springdale.
Mm-hmm.
My sister and I, 1223, Lord, I mean, I'm 1223. We bought this house together in 2000, so we've been there a little, right at 20 years. We've seen a lot of changes around the neighborhood since we've been there. And I'm sure that the ones that's been there a lot longer than us, and there's a lot of them, have seen even more changes. This particular house is across the street from us. It would definitely affect the value of our home, and I'm sure the value of everybody's home. We do not need an office in our neighborhood. We sat there and looked at this house, 1226, for years. It sat there vacant, deteriorating, going down really bad. The college finally came in, fixed up the house, and it looks really nice. There's a very nice family living there. They've been there a little over a year or more, and it's worked out fine. And I don't understand why they keep insisting on changing the zoning of this one particular house. They have plenty of places that they can put their accounting offices. We're almost getting surrounded, it looks like, by parking places. And my heart goes out to the house next door to 503. There is a residence there. And it's going to affect them quite a bit, I'm sure. But all I can say is we want to keep our zoning single-family residence. We ask you. We poured our heart and our souls into these homes, and we want to keep it that way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. I would think, is there anybody else that might have a different take or a different comment that you think council needs to hear? And you guys articulated the residents and neighborhood, but does anyone have anything different than these three comments that from the people who oppose that would like to talk? Okay. I'm going to open it up right now to council and maybe questions that we might have for the applicant.
I would like to hear.
Questions, comments? Ms. Chadwick?
No, I'd just like to hear from them first before I make my comments, if you don't mind.
No, do y'all have a prepared statement, or y'all were just reacting to the comments, so forth, or?
No, so we were just getting ready for any questions. That was all.
Okay, they're getting ready for questions.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to, of course, this has been a difficult subject. It's been a topic in which I have, all 12 years I've been on council, this property has come up multiple times. And I want to make a few statements. I've written a few things down because I don't want to forget anything. So I'd just like to first, I'd like to speak with my constituents as well as the Anderson University administration on a personal level. It has been said over the years that I am not a friend of the university. It has also been said that I'm not a friend of my constituents. And this could not be further from the truth. I have always been a supporter of the college and now as a university. But I've also been a servant to my constituents. And it's the ones that I serve. And so with that, I want to make a few other comments that as an architect, I truly appreciate the university's effort in creating a master plan illustrating the university's intent of future growth of their campus, and it should certainly help everybody visualize their direction. I commend the university in becoming a wonderful place of higher education and learning, and being recognized nationally for its accolades. I also recognize and appreciate the university's $300 million impact that it has to our city and to this county. I believe it's one of its greatest achievements is when it acquired the old fairgrounds property. This has led to further acquisition of blighted, both commercial and residential properties. 25 years ago, my wife and I purchased our first home next to the university. We lived there for 11 years as a neighbor to the university, or to the college at the time. I know and believe all of us here on council are proud of what the university has done and speak positively about this great institution. As a councilman for the Seat 2 citizens that I serve, I always tell people you have 4 members. Everybody in the city has 4 members on council that represent them. Myself, as your Seat 2 councilman, an at-large, and another at-large, as well as the mayor. All 4 of us serve all of y'all. Now, and then each of the other council members serve their respective seats. But what I want to do as your Seat 2 councilman is speak on behalf of the many who could not be here tonight or simply did not feel comfortable speaking out in opposition of the university. But I've gotten many phone calls. This is the one piece of property. I didn't get any on the previous property. That's why I voted for it. I didn't get any on the previous one before that. But for being here, I'll do my best to speak on behalf of the people that didn't want to speak, speaking in opposition of the rezoning. Based on the residents, obviously here tonight, I believe and confirm that I've received numerous emails, phone calls, and had personal discussions with many of the residents. And I just want the university to hear some of the ones that they were telling me. So the first one is the zoning currently in place is supposed to preserve the encroachment of the university into a residential neighborhood. That's what the zoning is meant for. Some of them have said, we have a line, why can't the university stick to it? Some of them have said the zoning board has voted to deny this request for the second time in the last 2 years. I rewatched I don't know if any of y'all know this, but you can watch these meetings on YouTube. I rewatched the meeting from May 14th, 2018. It was denied then, it was withdrawn. But the members that called me said, can we expect the council to do the same and hold up to the planning board's 6-1 vote? The university recently acquired 2 homes on Boulevard. Why can't those 2 homes be used as their offices? They've been told by the current administration they have no plans for further encroachment, but their concern is the next administration. Because once it's changed, it's changed. There's nothing we can do about it. Many of them have said we understand and that we bought into a neighborhood that was next to the university. We just want to preserve our neighborhood as it is currently. Another one said that why doesn't the university include offices in one of their new buildings that they're going to build? And then another one, why does the zoning keep happening every few years? And then lastly, probably that has the biggest impact on me is the university has 35 buildings on this proper site, not including the fairground, the old fairground site. They have 35 buildings. Not changing the zoning of this one particular piece of property will not have a great impact as it will on the residents if we do change it. And to conclude, once again, I've been chastised by a few of my constituents for telling them that several years ago when we were talking about the planning or the overlay district, which I thought was a great idea, but it wasn't received positively by everyone. So, that I thought, I've been chastised by a few of them that said that, I thought it would be a good idea because it would be a 9-to-5 use. when studying the overlay districts. However, I don't vote and never have in 12 years. I've never voted in a position of doing what I think I want. What I do is I think as council members, I believe we are elected to represent our constituents by listening to their concerns, answering questions, and genuinely voting in a way that represents their consensus. I understand that as council members, some think that there's a bigger vision, and I appreciate everything that the university is doing. I do. I'm a friend. I've done class reviews for them. I've been asked again to do it. I don't mind that at all, but unfortunately, for the university, due to the overwhelming outcry of the residents, especially the residents who are most affected by the zoning, I could not support the change of the request of denial and would ask that we do that formally as a motion.
You an opportunity to answer those questions. There were a few questions in there.
Sure.
And I think that's fair.
Sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you very much, and I'll do my best to answer those, and feel free to repeat any that I overlooked, because there was a lot of content in your comments. I want to start really quickly just to acknowledge we have a number of student government leaders that have come. They wanted to have a chance to witness city government and the procedures, as well as come in support of the university. So if I could ask the students to stand. I know they have to leave. They have their student government meeting, and so I'm not sure that they'll be able to stay long. I want to thank them all for their support. You can be seated. Anderson University is, for those of you that may not know, I know we've given you some information and materials about the university, but we've been recognized as the 18th fastest growing regional university in the United States, and that's by the Chronicle of Higher Education. That is the standard for higher education research. We also are the largest private university in South Carolina. And then also, might be a note to some of you is that the Princeton Review ranked Anderson equal in selectivity to both Furman and Wofford. So Anderson University has changed dramatically in its influence, both in the area, in the state, and in the region. So when we're asked questions about what is the importance of this, why is this necessary, the university is in an absolute rapid growth mode that has not stopped. We've more than doubled enrollment. The freshman class has almost tripled in size in the time since I came just around 2008. So we're growing dramatically. Our workforce has quadrupled to between 700 and 800 that we have working for the university. So it is. We need space. We have to grow, and we need to accommodate the growth of the university. Just to kind of rewind a little bit, these are the only two properties on the main campus that are not designated RM18. These are the only two parcels of land the university owns that are not in the RM18 designation. So that's the genesis of this from the city staff's recommendations. It's not arbitrary or capricious recommendation. This is a recommendation to be consistent with all of the zoning across the campus, and these are the only two parcels that are not. In 2017, the city staff had recommended to us to work with the Boudreaux Group. That was a group out of Columbia that the city had worked with for some parks and recs projects. We contracted with them. They developed a master plan for the athletic campus for the former fairgrounds. Then in 2018, following the meetings that Mr. Chapman referenced, the council said, please come up with a comprehensive master plan. We want something to consider, but we want to see what's the plan, what's the end game here for the university. Give us a comprehensive picture. So again, it's not piecemeal, picking off little things here and there, but it's a strategic and a comprehensive plan. So we did that. That was a significant cost to the university, and we contracted with Credo Higher Education, which is a national firm. They specialize in collegiate master planning for universities, and they took the group and they developed a master plan. They worked with city staff, with county staff in developing this comprehensive master plan. And so this request for the rezoning fits into that comprehensive plan and that recommendation from our consultants as well as from the city staff. So we're asking for this in response to what the city asked us to do in 2018. We feel that the university has demonstrated our desire to be a good neighbor, that that our presence in the community is continually appreciating the value of the property and the surrounding area. I know you all have a packet that you received from us that has the letter of support from the 120 signatories, as well as the master plan, this that you saw today, the economic impact study that I think was referenced, that Mr. Chapman referenced earlier. So I'm happy to answer more specific questions, but we need this space. We absolutely need this space. As I said, our growth and our impact on the community, it necessitates this. And this is part of the plan that the city asked us to develop, and this is the next phase. We just met in August, and you reviewed and approved some additional properties to RM18. This is the final stage in that process. So again, I want you to know that this is the university responding to your requests and trying to follow through on those requests. So.
Thank you, and I didn't, did you have a motion? I didn't hear that.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Well, I mean,
We can hear the rest. I just, they weren't necessarily questions for the university. It was comments that they were asking me, which I think have been answered through the planning commission. That's the kind of responses I was getting.
no, and I was just saying, I didn't want to dismiss your motion, but
Sure.
you good?
I was making a motion to deny.
Do you want to go ahead and make that motion?
That'd be fine. Yes.
Okay. Because you said, first.
Second. Second.
Second. Okay, we can continue discussion. Dr. Thompson?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Jeff Roberts. Go right ahead.
Anderson University is located largely in my seat, so you are my constituent. I received no phone calls in opposition to your request, and on the contrary, I received several in favor. And when you look at the assets of the city of Anderson, I would put Anderson University near, if not at the top. So I appreciate what you bring to Anderson. I can't think of a more benign occupancy than an accounting office. I live in a neighborhood where some commercial properties over time have encroached into it, and we hardly notice them. Hardly notice them. And they're old houses, and beautiful old houses. This will not change the residential appearance. It'll change the function, but not the appearance. So I do see it as a minimal impact. And I don't want to harm the neighborhood. I do not. I value that neighborhood, and it's a beautiful neighborhood. So I think it's a reasonable request. And that's my position. I will not be supporting your motion.
I'd like to respond to a comment that was made about the nature of the office. It is an accounting office. It is not a student account office, so there will be no student traffic. This is just for accounts payable and accounting. So you do not have vendors coming to this building. You do not have students, parents. Those functions are handled in the student center.
Yeah, I think Mr. McKenzie echoed that.
Okay.
Mr. Harvey?
Real quick question for the university, please. And, you know, I've only been on council 10 years, I think, and it has come up through the years, and I do remember what you spoke of, you know, maybe getting a big picture of which way the university is going, what the long-range plan was, and I appreciate the university taking the time to plan that out and have a work session to go over and share that. Would you take a minute to sort of go back on a time frame, if you can, about when you acquired the property, the fairgrounds, but I'm not sure what I'm supposed to call it other than the old fairgrounds.
Right.
And how that sort of changed how, you know, it looks like the long-range planning that I've seen that y'all spent a good bit of money on, everything's going, is that west, east? East, I guess.
Maybe.
On that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is where the space is in a rapidly growing area. property stops right here on Springdale and goes all the way down Old Williamston, I guess, right now. Could you speak a little bit about that and the plans for the university and the direction of growth? If it's the 18th fastest growing university, you know, I look for that to probably trend to continue. Share a little bit with the plans.
Sure. Yes, yeah, thank you, Mr. Harbin. The strategic plan that was developed for the campus master plan indicates all future student housing at the athletic campus, which is what we call the former fairground facility. So all of the property surrounding that is where we would be building new housing for students. That's why, again, why we developed the master plan, because you're moving into zones where you have kind of the learning zone, you have the living and residential, and then you have the recreational and athletic. And so, and it's following that paradigm and that philosophy. So in terms of future development, all student housing is planned towards the athletic campus. Yes, sir. And no student housing is planned for the area surrounding the main campus.
Let me piggyback just a little bit. I'm Reggie Gay, University Council, but you know, I lived in this neighborhood on the corner of Windsor and Springdale for 16 years, and my children rode bikes down Springdale and Windsor, and we walked around Springdale. And the last thing I would want to do is to change the neighborhood environment in that area. I love that area. I know a lot of people still live there. Raised our children in that house, and we were right there. The whole purpose of this is to protect the neighborhood. That's why there's proposed screening. There'll be more screening. The house will look residential. If you take traffic off of the road and not add traffic, it is a very low use activity in that building. There will be, the entrances will be from the parking lot. There will be our employees entering, so we do have control over where they park and where they can enter. They will not be parking on the street. We have taken care of that. There were problems with students parking on the streets in past years. That has been taken care of. But the whole concept, and part of the consultant was, how can we best grow the university, use our facilities, use our land, how can we grow it, but also protect the neighborhood, protect their value. You know, I would feel safe in saying that the reason that neighborhood is probably there is because of the university. That's what makes those neighborhoods valuable, is they're adjacent to the university. All of this property, with the exception of that one lot, is already zoned, what is it, RM 18. So we don't want to do anything with it other than the very benign. We want it to be a buffer into that neighborhood to protect the property values, protect the university, so that we can have a closed campus. The campus will then be growing the other way. That will be the boundary. That's why we're proposing it. So I think there's some misconception over what the potential uses might be. And we have worked with the neighborhood, or attempted to. We spent, Elmore and I,
18 months on the overlay study, if you recall that. That was, we worked with the city staff recommending the overlay district, which would add additional layers of zoning restrictions on the property to limit it to no more than 3 non-relatives, so comparable to what Pendleton has done. And unfortunately, that was just not well received and agreeable to the community. But again, the university has made every effort to respond to the community's concerns, to the city's request, to the council's request, to the planning commission's request at significant investments. And so that's why we brought this as a comprehensive strategic plan. It's a blueprint of what we intend to do. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Newton, I think you had something.
Yes, sir. This is more so for staff, either Maurice or Mr. McKeon or someone. Just one point of clarification regarding the maintenance of Springdale Road. Is that a city road or is that a state road? State road. State road. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
Got a couple of questions. First of all, if this is defeated tonight, what will be the use of the building that's there? You do own it, so you're planning to use it as what if it is defeated?
It had been student housing prior, temporarily, and I want to clarify because there were some comments that were made regarding some of our students' conduct. It was actually a ministry house, so the SGA, the student government students, That was actually designated to be a ministry house for students to do ministry at the campus. So it was not a house of ill repute or whatever was implied earlier in the comments. And I'm concerned because that troubles me, that those kind of assumptions and accusations we make be made about our students, and I want to speak to that. But to your question, Mr. Lawford, we are currently using it. We converted it from student housing. We completely remodeled it. Again, going back to the 2018 zoning conversations and requests, we remodeled the interior, the exterior, the landscaping, repainted, did significant investment, and right now our director of residence life is living there with his family, and that's just a temporary solution, again, because of space constraints for he and his family to live there, but he needs to have proximity to the campus to respond to the needs, student needs. So.
But that still doesn't answer my question.
Yes.
If it's a temporary thing with this person living there, what will happen after that?
Well, our goal would be for it to be the accounting office.
But if it's not approved, that is not the best use of that facility, to have someone living in it. I don't know what we would do with it. I can't speak for the university, but I don't think we would intend to have someone to continue to live in that residence.
Yes.
The other point I have to say is, I went to Anderson College before it was Anderson University. One of the things you taught me as I was there, I had Dr. Rouse as my president. He was a wonderful man. And they said to be true to yourself is the main thing you have to do. When I ran for city council 12 years ago, one of the things that was on my agenda, and one of the things that I told the people in my community, is that I would fight against encroachment from businesses and organizations into neighborhoods. Since then, I have done that. I have fought against lots of encroachments in different areas in the city. I believe in Anderson University. I am a big supporter of Anderson University. I am not against it. But at the same time, that is why I seconded Mr. Chapman's motion. So it's one of those things that I'm really stretched when I hear this from the community and I hear this from the college, and it bothers me. But at the same time, I have to be true to myself. So just to let you know where I'm coming from.
I appreciate your comments and respect those, sir. And I would say in closing that for any of the members of the council, for any of the guests here tonight, if you look at any square inch of the university, everything that we do demonstrates excellence, demonstrates quality, demonstrates respect. What the university has done to improve the aesthetics of the campus in that area are going to carry. So I understand the encroachment concern, but we have done nothing to demonstrate that anything we do damages the neighborhood or damages the value of adjacent property. And so I would ask that the council please consider that.
I want to say that we're still in discussion. We have a first and a second. Now, I also want to just make sure the council knows that we're in a question and answer. If you've got a question from the university, or even if you want to get back to a question with some of the residents, feel free to ask that question. But we're in a mode right now with council where it's our meeting, we've got to make a decision. So I want everybody to have the ability to ask questions of council and even residents.
If I may just have one follow-up. I just want to make sure that, and I'm just like Mr. Lockridge, it's a struggle. It's, living next to the university, or the college at the time, for 11 years, I commend everything you've said and everything you're doing. But at the end of the day, once it's changed, there's no going back. That is the kind of the cutoff line, and then it's not that you may do anything, Mr. Gay or Mr. Rashad, but it's your successors, and that's why we're trying to keep and hold that line. With that,
That's also why we developed the master plan at the city's request, because the master plan shows a blueprint of the university's intent for what we plan to do for our current property, and for future growth and acquisition. And as we've said, I've received calls. I think I mentioned this to some of you. I received multiple calls this summer. Let me clarify. I received 2 calls this summer, and 2 calls in the spring to purchase properties in the Springdale neighborhood. Anytime a property goes up for sale within a stone's throw of the university, everybody calls us and wants the university to purchase it, and we told them we are not interested. We made a commitment not to acquire property in that neighborhood. We want to respect that we're not moving up the boulevard towards Greenville Street, and we're not moving into that neighborhood. And we've honored that. So.
Thank you. And what I'd like to do right now is we have a first and a second. No further discussion. This is, does anybody have anything to ask Mr. Shaw?
Yes, thank you. Just like I said before, this is a standalone piece of property. It is in a residential neighborhood. All of this around here is zoned single-family residential.
Yes, sir.
And what I mentioned earlier, it happened on Springdale, swearing on my mother's grave, it happened. And what will happen from this, only God knows. Sir, if I done knew you had anything to do with the university, you would've got a call.
Mr. Shaw.
No idea.
Mr. Shaw.
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Well, let's stay respectful. And again, we
Well, I
want.
don't mean nothing about it, I just wanted to
understand.
know that I was speaking with him.
I understand.
Not being disrespectful to him and don't want anyone to think I am.
Okay.
Respect all you members of council and you, Mr. Mayor, too.
Yes, sir.
But, I would just want to say that I'm sure you would have heard from a lot of people who live on Springdale, Winter, College Avenue, if they had known. I have never heard that before in my life until you said it just then. And you would have definitely got a call from me.
Thank you.
Well, you had that opportunity, sir.
Well, I didn't know. I mean, if somebody told me, I'd have done it. And so, a lot of people.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Yes, sir. We have a first and a second.
We've got other people that want to come.
And again, I want to, we could be here as long as you want to, but if you've got something different to say, then as far as, yes, sir, come on up. Yes, sir.
David Kennington, Springdale Road. With that zoning change proposal on Springdale Road, leaving that one property zone, or if it is changed, wouldn't it open up the possibility of if another property came open, to kind of connect those properties together to encroach on the toward Greenville Street, contrary to what they just said, and it looked like trying to make a boundary or buffer there, but that may not be true if another property comes available.
That's a good point.
That one across the street from that.
And I think I'll address this, and maybe speak, and I think I've heard somebody say this. Obviously, any type of zoning request ends up right back in front of city council. And so, any type of changing in zoning ends right back into the commission, and it gets back to us. And so, the answer to your question would be, they can't rezone property without it coming back to council. To Mr. Chapman's point about not being concerned about this administration, but maybe the next administration. But again, that always ends back on this council, whether that's 2 years from now, or 20 years from now, or 10 years from now, it always comes back here.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, that's why we developed a master plan at the request of the city. And if we veer from that, if we deviate from that as a university, whether it's this administration or administration 30 years from now, we've broken our trust, we've broken your trust, and that the council should hold the university accountable for that. But again, we did everything with good faith to respond, to make investments, to do everything that the council has asked us to do, and that the city staff has recommended. And if somebody, if a future leader comes forward with something that violates that the city council has the authority to hold them accountable and say, you lied to us, you promised this in 2020, you didn't keep your word, therefore we are not going to support this.
Thank you. I'm going to call the question. And the motion on the floor is to deny the ordinance to rezone 1226 Springdale Road. And I'm going to ask for a hand sign on this. All those in favor of denying the request to rezone Springdale Road, please raise your hand. Opposed? That motion carries 5-2.
Mayor, I'd like to make the motion to rezone 12 Springdale Road from R15 single-family residential to R18 multifamily residential.
First by Mr. Newton, second by Mr. Jeff Roberts. We're in a discussion, comments?
I do.
Mr. John Roberts?
So, Mayor, thank you, and I thank everyone for their comments tonight. I truly came in here very open-minded to listening and hearing. Had plenty of family in the neighborhood, grew up visiting family, lived across the north, walked the neighborhood every day. I'm very familiar with, I walk this actual path every day. So I came in, and as Mr. Lothridge made comments and Mr. Chapman, I felt what they were saying, and it's really sticking with me. I was torn, and I do want to say that at this point, the university has made a promise. Mr. Gay, you stated earlier that the house would remain, would look like a home, would look like a residence. And Mr. Rashad, you just stated that it's the trust and the accountability of the university to move forward with their master plan. And my notes before you said it were this council, myself, and I'm really the only one I can speak for, but I will hold and remember that promise. And you know, that will dig in for me for future generations as well. But moving forward, I'd also like to say that, you know, I would love to see, as a recommendation from me, this is John Roberts speaking, this is not a city, this is not a community, but I think if we're going to maintain the residential look, the landscaping, which y'all do a great job, that's known, but signage, lighting, things like that to maintain a residential look. I'd ask that y'all be very mindful of that with the residents, the neighborhood, even in the parking lot and the pedestrian pathway, and be mindful of the screening and the noise pollution, parking lot lights, etc. I would truly ask that the neighborhood be kept very much in mind when doing these things. Control it for them. I had an email today from another neighboring resident, not a Springdale resident, but another adjoining neighborhood. And those were some of his biggest concerns. And, you know, just please be mindful. I ask that you do that. So, because we will remember.
Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Thompson.
I've listened very carefully, and I've been following this over the years that it's come to council. And I think this is one of the hardest decisions I've made. One who I remember on Main Street, McDougal's. This has been a very, very hard decision because I understand the people who live in that area. I understand their concerns, their home. I feel the same way, I think, if I lived there. But I look at the fact that when I hear what Anderson University is going to do, and John, you mentioned a lot of things that is on my mind about keeping this the residential look on Springdale. And my heart does go out to the people who live there. But I do believe that Anderson University will be a man of their word, that they will keep this residential. And I look at the fact that most of the traffic will be coming from the parking lot, not from the street. That's a plus. You will also have that front looking like it's a residential house and fit the community. And I'm pretty sure with all these people who come here tonight and the ones who did not come, they're going to keep your feet to the fire. and they should. And if you do anything that's detrimental to this community, I'm going to be sorry for my vote. But my vote tonight is to support Anderson University. And as I said, it's one of the second hardest decisions I've made with all the years I've been on council. And I wish you luck and blessings on each side of the aisle with this.
Any other comments, questions? Show of hands, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that passes 6-2. For the record, the denial was 6-2 also. We'll move on to our new business, and our first item of new business is request consideration of an ordinance extending the emergency term of ordinance 20-24 regarding face coverings. Mr. McHugh.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, in consideration of this item before you, the council enacted an ordinance, ordinance number 2024 on July 24, 2020, and this required individuals to wear face coverings in retail, food service establishments, and public transportation. This was done in accordance with state code that provides the emergency authority to local government to do so, particularly in the absence of state government that did not pass the mandate and put that responsibility into the local government's hands. So the ordinance that you passed was first reading. It was an emergency ordinance, so it expires on the 61st day following the day of its enactment. So with that, it expires on Wednesday, September the 23rd. Before we get into my recommendation to you, I have invited Director David Baker from Anderson County Emergency Management. Before each of you is the numbers as of today. Reported from DHEC in our community, and I'm going to let Director Baker, at the pleasure of council, provide the presentation to you and go over those numbers.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Baker. Also, I think I'll speak for the entire council. Thank you for the last 6 months.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's been quite busy. I appreciate the opportunity to come back and visit with you again to kind of update you on some numbers. I believe the last time I was here, you guys were considering what you're going to do about the ordinance here for the municipality or for the city here for Anderson, and have decided to, at that particular time, to enact an ordinance. I'm kind of excited to tell you that I'm coming to report to you some better numbers, and as you guys have probably seen over the last few weeks, those numbers have decreased a little bit, and I certainly believe that a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're starting to see more and more people wearing masks and entering businesses and things of that nature, not just within Anderson City, but throughout the county of Anderson. And I certainly believe that all of those actions lend to these numbers decreasing. But to kind of just go over with you real quick some of the numbers, specifically the top 4 zip codes, 9621, 24, 25, and 26, all being Anderson zip codes. Almost on a daily basis, if you guys have seen this chart come out, that you know, the previous number being 148, today's 149, that means we climbed a number. A lot of days we'll lose more people from that quarantine number, that 14, where it might say, you know, hey, we got 2 new cases, but we dropped, you know, significantly in that particular zip code for that day. And that's usually the case where especially here lately, we're losing more people from the quarantine than we're adding. That is a good thing. That means that that this virus and things like that has not increased, and especially for the last few weeks, to the point where our case count is climbing faster than we're decreasing. But again, just to kind of discuss some of these local numbers, 29621 being 148 was the previous. Today it's 149. It climbed a case. 2964 is at 36. It decreased a case. It's down to 35. 25 is at 59. It increased 4 cases, so it's at 63. And 29626 is at 23. It decreased down to 21. And if you'll remember at the very beginning, about a month or 2 in this, DHEC was estimated that 29621 would be the highest zip code in the state of South Carolina. Y'all probably remember that. I felt like that wasn't accurate information. I think they were doing it based on population and how quickly that count had increased. But I'm excited to say that right now, in regards to our case count, it's maintained at a much lower rate than what they believed it was going to be. Our deaths have increased. We were at 134 total deaths for the entire event. And our event total is at 3,704 event total. And again, our total population for this county, and that's speaking, those numbers are speaking throughout the county, not specific to Anderson City. But keeping in mind that our total population from I think the latest census has us somewhere between 205 to 210 total thousand residents. All right, so the next page, if you look at the cases per day, and that should be this one right here. It's going to show you what, a lot of talk and conversation took place at the very beginning of the virus. It talks about when you see that peak happens, and then you want to try and kind of slow the curve and get on the downslope as quick as you could. If you look at the rate of decrease, it's almost very similar of the rate of increase, and that is an exciting sign to see. We do hope that continues. We certainly have to take into consideration that certain things were put in place, such as your ordinance, which I believe certainly lent to the fact that these numbers were decreasing. A lot of our businesses outside of the city limits of Anderson did the same. And a lot of our citizens started taking a more proactive approach and did the right thing by wearing masks in public. DHEC is now regulated through the governor's order, a lot of things for businesses and restaurants and things of that nature, which certainly did help. We're excited that those things have happened. We do have to kind of be a little cautious because when we talk about numbers and things like that and seeing the fall, the cool season is coming, and one of the things that was certainly a concern was what kind of research we would see when colder weather came. There's some things we certainly need to be prepared for and consider when we start planning ahead. So I mentioned that for you to take into consideration when you start looking for either potentially extending your ordinance and how long you might potentially extend it for. All right, the next page shows the upstate. This is specifically the upstate of South Carolina that shows the total cases, or total tests, total cases, total hospitalization and deaths, and then again it shows the total numbers as it rises and starts making that decrease. If you'll notice, I think what was the date of your ordinance?
July 24th.
It said July 24th. If you look at this particular chart, July 24th will be somewhere right in here. And if you'll see, about a week later, it reached its peak and then started dropping. And you can see that decrease has been almost the same rate as it was an increase. A little slower towards the end of August, but it certainly has decreased significantly. Our total case trend, we only went back for the last 2 weeks, as going back a little further was a little difficult. But you'll see these numbers are down significantly at 18 for the 5th, 20 for the 6th, 30 for the 7th, 6 on the 8th, 2 on the 9th, 5 on the 10th, 55 on the 11th, 42 on the 12th, 26 on the 13th and 14th. Now, I'll tell you this, I'm not naive in thinking that they only added 6 and 2 and 5, those would be really low days. I just know that those are some individuals that went to get tested because they either knew they had an exposure or possibly were symptomatic. Also know that during those times around those weekends, those private laboratories don't report in the first week. So that would be a reason why you start seeing, as Councilman Harbin had asked about what it looks like when we see those quick spikes in numbers. A lot of times it's those private companies that don't report daily and things like that might not report to the first week. These 55 and 42 in cases like that typically will come after that. I did, however, and I don't know if we still potentially might, but I was prepared to see a very large spike after Labor Day weekend, and fortunately we have not seen a significant one, and I'll knock on wood as I say that. We've been keeping up with AMS hospital count, where they were averaging somewhere around, their daily COVID case count was around 60 plus, and then in the ICU was around 30 plus. That's almost in half. and it's maintained about half of that for about the past week to week and a half. We're excited to see their numbers as well. And those are good numbers, good real numbers to kind of get a good snapshot of, because that's individuals that either, that are 100% symptomatic. They're there for treatment. And it lets us know, as things progressed, how high that count got and how it started decreasing. And it did that also simultaneously with these numbers that we see in our testing. So they're really good numbers to see. Again, the Anderson County trend line, you'll see the really good line going from the very beginning in March 15th as it slowly increased. Of course, a lot of that had to do with testing increase. Around July, you'll see the event totals starting to drastically increase with August, the second being our highest total. Then from August 2nd, that trend spiraled down to today's date. Moving forward, again, this is your daily case breakdown per zip code. We were at 171 and 2961 on September the 1st. We're down to 149. 2964, we were at 49. We're down to 35. 2965, we were at 68. We're at 63. So that's remained fairly consistent. And 2965 is a pretty big zip code. 29626 is 25 and it's down to 20. So that is your actual real numbers for your respective zip codes. And again, just to kind of to give you just a little information from an emergency management perspective, because we look at numbers today to plan for tomorrow. We look at what yesterday's numbers were, and I'd like to tell you that every day that these numbers are that accurate, that they are yesterday's numbers, so that we can look towards kind of plan for tomorrow. They're not quite yesterday's. They're a little, we do get some delays in testing and things of that nature. But we are seeing a significant impact in your ordinance. We're seeing a significant impact by people wearing masks in public and being more responsible. So my suggestion would be that when you take into consideration your mask ordinance, plan ahead for what's potentially going to be some cooler weather. If you're going to look at a 30-day extension, a 45-day extension, we're going to go back to another 60 days. I don't know. But I would say at least take that into consideration as we start that decrease, because we certainly want it to go even lower than where we are at this current time.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Questions, comments?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You say that the cool weather's coming, so we should take care and how we vote for this. Are you saying we should have a longer period of time for the mask, simply because people are going to go inside more because of the cooler weather, that kind of thing?
Certainly so. There's a lot of speculation that warmer weather would decrease the spread because of humidity being higher. So things such as that. Cooler weather would afford the opportunity for individuals to be inside closer together within proximity. I think people are being a little more serious when they go inside with social distancing and things of that nature. But we still have to deal with families that get together and friends and things like that. So certainly something to think about. I believe that if my math's right, if you extended another 60 days, it puts you into November.
Okay, Mr. Chapman and Mr. Carter.
So, and what I certainly appreciate is all council does, as Mayor said, everything you're doing. Can you speak to us a little bit, just for example, 29621 on 9/1, it was 171, but then it fell to 107 on the 10th, but then it's gone up nearly 40% in the last 4 days.
Okay.
From 107 to 149. Can you?
61 starting
on like, of course, it started at 171, but it fell continuously.
Yes, sir.
But then got to 910,
right. And
then on 9/11, it started rising.
Yes, sir.
And went up almost 40% in 4 days.
I'm going to guess that's probably going to be community testing, because whenever there's a community testing event, and I'll have to double check the date of that. Anytime we do a community testing event and we have hundreds of people that show up for those things, the potential to get a very high count happens.
Okay.
We've been very fortunate in all of our community testing sites that we've done and participated in. Unfortunately, we've also had some that have taken place that we have not participated in. They've been from outside agencies, outside healthcare providers that have come into Anderson County to run these particular things. We don't get their numbers reported directly from them like we do with AMED and some of our local partners. We get those numbers as a raw number from DHEC, and unfortunately don't know exactly where they come from. But I can tell you that when we have this community test, we're somewhere, we stay fairly consistent with what the state percentage average is. We have 1,000 people show up. If the state average is around 8, 9, 10% of those testing positive, we're usually around that same average with our positive tests. So that could be a 30 to 40 individual increase right there.
Thank you.
Ms. Hall?
Mr. Baker, thank you. Unlike the rest of council, we appreciate
Yes, sir.
the data that you give us. And also, I know it's probably just not you in that department. There's some other staff members.
Yes.
Please pass along our appreciation.
Yes, sir, I will.
This is the real data that Mr. McEwen so graciously provides us every day.
Yes, sir.
Saturday, Sunday, Monday, it doesn't matter, and I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. McEwen passing that along. And, you know, I'm a numbers person, and I read Kurt's newspaper. Sometimes when it spikes up, there's you know, should we be worried? Is it safe? There's two things. Is it safe? Two questions. Is it safe to say that a 7-day moving average is really the barometer to look at?
Yes, sir. And I get what you're saying, because you are looking at Monday and Tuesday. Saturday and Sunday typically are going to be lower numbers, because again, you're going to catch those that day before, what that day looks like. So when you look at Sunday's number, where it typically would be Saturdays, that, you know, you're getting private labs that are not reporting until first of the week and things like that. So usually around Tuesday to Wednesday, I think if you look at how some of those dates look, those are typically your heavier days, and that's where you get a very large amount of testing that comes in. That might not be your last 24 hours, but it would be, you know, within the last few days. So it certainly would not hurt to do a 7-day average if you wanted a good, I guess, a good physical snapshot of what your week looked like.
And secondly, the last slide that you provided us,
Yes.
you provided us that at the last meeting.
Yes, sir.
And I took an opportunity to share that on any social platform that I possibly could. And I had several people say that that made like tons of sense.
Yes, sir.
And so I would like, you know, if we can, I know we've saturated it, but I think it's a powerful slide, the last one that sort of shows, you know, sort of what the chances are to mask versus no mask. And two healthy people, you know, I think it's a great slide, and I don't know if you made it or stole it or
Yes, sir.
borrowed it from somebody, but I think it's
We compile our information from DHEC, and we'll spread it out over a period of time so you can see these.
yeah, that one right there.
Yes, sir.
It shows, I would like us to, we may already share it in every social platform that we can, but I think that makes the most sense to the most common person, why or why not they should wear a mask. And I appreciate what the city's done. Mr. Baker, I've passed along to the county council chair and everybody else how much we appreciate the information that you're providing us, and keep up
Yes,
the
sir.
work.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Dr. Thompson, yes, sir.
I want to ask, because I'm reading every day about college kids.
Yes, ma'am.
College starting,
Yes, ma'am.
and the attitudes of the kids who are going to college,
Yes, ma'am.
and the testing, and the attitude of I can't get it anyway. And the discussion about, well, if you send home to your parents, they can possibly get it. So are you going to find this numbers rising with the opening of colleges?
Okay. So we've had Anderson University's been open now, I think, for a couple of weeks, and y'all may or may not know this, but my office is actually housed in an Anderson University building, the old Duke Power building. We're upstairs. That's where we're located. So we share the building with professors and students of Anderson University, and I pass them. They're always wearing masks. They always practice social distancing. Anderson University has an emergency management degree program there, and they've done a really good job on how they set that university up to return back to campus, how they're maintaining the campus. And so I can't speak, I don't know kind of where Tri-County Tech is with some of their things, But my understanding is they're doing a lot of testing for returning, as is Clemson University, for their for their on campus students. But I can tell you that for our local Anderson perspective, Anderson University's done a really good job with their university. And we get a lot of requests for this same information that we share with you so that people can make that decision. In fact, today we just had some conference calls with some of our local school districts that were making some future decisions on how they're going to, is their dates for their face-to-face classroom instruction realistic? And we provide them data a lot like we are you to help them make those decisions. So I would say that in Anderson County, that students have taken this pretty seriously. And their staff has done a good job with it as well.
Any other questions for Mr. Baker? One last thing. People ask me about contract tape. Display contract tracing.
Contact tracing?
Contact tracing.
Yes, sir.
Say that 10 times. Contract.
Yes, sir.
You got it.
Yep. Go ahead.
So contact tracing would be the investigative process that actually DHEC conducts, and that's where if an individual contracts the virus, they're positive, they make contact with them, try to make a determination where the exposure first started, and then it kind of goes backwards from there to potentially identify other individuals who might have been exposed, and also to help them, I guess, with data to ensure.
So that's a DHEC thing outside
It
of
is, yes, sir. We don't do that.
Okay. Thank you. Dave?
First, I also have to thank Director Baker. Him and his staff do a phenomenal job for Anderson County. We talk and communicate multiple times a day, and he does that with all the school districts, all the municipalities, and all the partners in Anderson County, the institutions. And I was in the State Emergency Operations Center this week, got a visit, and they talked about, kind of what they've been going through, and the County Emergency Operations Center echoes or mirrors what the State Emergency Operations Center does, and its activation. They talked about this is we usually have a storm that comes and goes, right? And there's some recovery that takes place, even with hurricanes and so forth. This is the longest time that's ever been activated for. So it just continues to go on, and that's a real process. It's very tiring because there's a lot, it's 24/7, a lot to that. But I speak on behalf of the city. I want to thank you so much and your team, what you do in sharing that information to us. With that, Mr. Mayor, we do have this before us for the extending this emergency ordinance. Is based on the staff's recommendation is on the continued state of emergency created by COVID-19 and the reports that you heard today with the numbers. We recommend that council take action to extend ordinance number 2024. And we actually recommend, due to also what I just heard and what Director Bacon and I have talked about, this is all an experiment still trying to figure out what's this virus going to do, especially as we go into the fall and winter season, as you have the common cold, the flu virus, among other things that occur this time of year. That if we do it for 60 days, that takes us to Saturday, November the 21st. Obviously, we actually have to revisit that prior to that terminating on the 21st. So we'd be revisiting that on November the 9th at that period of time if we did 60 days. If you did 45 days, it would be Friday, November the 6th, and we need to revisit it at our second meeting in October. Staff recommendation, given Director Baker's information today, would be that we do it for 60 days, but that's certainly your consideration. I'll take any questions, and Director Baker will as well, I'm sure.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
How has it been with people not wearing masks? Have you had anybody that this was, I'm not going to wear it no matter what you say or what you do?
We've issued this, I did talk with the Citation Department, and they have issued 10 warnings, and that's contact they've made. And it was 4 restaurants, 4 retail establishments, and 2 salons. With that, it came, it was really from citizens that had reported that to us, and then we went and spoke with the management of those entities, and they complied since then.
Okay,
So, I mean, you still may have somebody slip through, somebody at Lowe's or something like that, they're going through the garden session and they take it off for whatever period of time. But, I mean, we certainly, as the mayor said, from eyeball test, I mean, compliance is it's really become a social norm, I would say.
I'd say so too.
Ms. Roberts, Jeff?
David, you and I spoke prior to this, but we're obviously getting good data. And I probably agree with Matt that a 7-day moving average is a good way to judge that. But at some point, what measurement do we call it good enough? How do we achieve that number?
Right.
When it's low enough that we can say, all right, the masks work, and let's take them off.
Yes, sir. So Director Baker and I talked about that, and two benchmark numbers. One, I mean, from the beginning, when the government took action from the federal government, state government, and local government, was to create opportunity to not surge hospitals. So that's an important, very important benchmark. And as those numbers have come down, we need to see how that does with the combination of everything else that's happening. So I think we need more time for that to play out and see what their new norm's going to be, because we don't know that. I mean, it has dropped down into that 35 range, and it's kind of staying there, it's kind of hovering there for the last couple of weeks. However, 35 to 40 range. However, we need a little bit longer time to see that and what that looks like at the hospital. Does it drop down in the 20s, or does it go up? So that's a very important one there. Then also the percent positive total tests, which, believe it or not, is very hard to get from DHEC. And you can't just do the math right here, because there's other reporting data from private labs and so forth where they actually need to do that calculation for us. I know the county adopted a policy of 5%. Is that right? 5%. So if it's 5% or less, they would remove their mask requirements within their county facilities. And I think that is a good benchmark. I've heard other institutions in Anderson also look at that number. Anything higher than that is really becoming, I mean, you have community spread still very active. And so I think those are two great benchmarks. But we need a little bit longer to see what the hospital's numbers are going to look like too.
Ms. Chapman?
Just one little follow-up. Has any study or does the state have any recommendations about how they feel like the flu season is going to impact the COVID numbers? Because I imagine if you catch the flu, your immune system is going to be down, and you could be more likely to catch COVID from that, or not. Has the state given any recommendations?
There was certainly some concerns that were brought forward with the flu season coming. And it's kind of, I guess, a two-sided thing, because number one, if you're wearing masks, the opportunity to protect yourself from catching the flu certainly it increases. So, however, if you do catch the flu, your immune system certainly weakens and things such as that. If you look at the symptoms that are flu-like, they're very similar to the COVID. So, it's probably going to encourage more symptomatic people that think they're symptomatic to get into test for COVID, some of which might test positive for both the flu and COVID. So it's kind of I guess, a double-sided sword, where you do have certainly a layer of protection from the masks, but also, the weakened immune system and things such as that certainly is something to consider.
Okay, thank you.
I was around our hospital friends today, and their friends, and they were saying that the flu, even though the numbers are down, that I think they're kind of wanting to see what the flu does to the capacity at the hospital. Another thing I hadn't heard too, which y'all might have, that if you're over 65, you get a stronger dose of the flu, and the shot itself, somewhat of a double. It would tend to make your arm a little bit sore, I was told, but that's a fact too. Ms. Harvey?
Mr. McEwen, so if we adopt this tonight to extend it for 60 days, so what happens after 60 days if we want to do another 45 days, or within these 60 days, let's say the miracle happens and the cases drop significantly, can we rescind this ordinance within the next 60 days? I guess that's question one. Question two, you know, if we are faced in 60 days with rising numbers, or like, you know, Jeff said, that the numbers aren't sufficient for us that we still think we need one. When does the law, is there a state law that says we cannot continue to do 60 days temporary ordinances? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hartman, so the first question of that is, if things are better, can you rescind the ordinance, if you adopt it for 60 days or so forth? Yes. You hold that authority as vested in you as council to rescind this ordinance. The second question is, state law does provide for the emergency ordinances to go no longer than 6 months, and so it cannot see that. So if it does exceed 6 months, we would move into actually putting in an emergency ordinance that's more permanent. That's rare because municipalities really haven't faced a situation like that before. However, we continue to get guidance from legal counsel, from municipal associations and so forth on moving in that direction. So they did provide legal direction on this as well, and our city attorney reviewed it as well as far as extending the ordinance. So you can continue to extend the ordinance up to a total of 6 months.
Okay. With that, Mayor, and this may surprise my old teacher, Mr. Lockridge, who's been a champion of the mask ordinance, I'd like to make a motion to approve this for a 60-day continuance.
Second.
First,
I'm proud of
Mr. Hartman, and second by Dr. Thompson. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Appreciate it. Our next item is request consideration to purchase 2 service trucks from the Water Operations Department. Mr. McKinney.
Mayor, City Council, this is a quick item for you to evaluate. Mr. Jeff Caldwell, our Utilities Director, present this item to you. Mr. Caldwell.
This request is directly in line with our vehicle replacement plan. Our water department is to replace 2 of our service trucks in this fiscal year. The garage, the fleet management in the garage requested bids and actually just went to the state contract bid with Dick Smith, and that is a cost of $39,203 each, and we are requesting approval to purchase 2 of those. The vehicles are a budgeted expense. Like I said, it's directly in line with the replacement plan.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, comments for Ms. Caldwell? First by Ms. Newton.
Second.
Second by Mr. John Roberts.
Yes.
Quick question.
Delivery.
You ever get these bids?
Not sure. We did look at some ones that were on the lot already. They had a few bells and whistles that we didn't need that would probably end up being torn off when they get off road or something like that. So we decided not to go with the ones that we could get right away. So we are at the mercy of the delivery.
The manufacturer.
Any other comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Our last item of new business is request consideration of design and engineering contract for North Main Street streetscape project. My understanding that is also associated with the executive session item.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Staff recommends that we go into executive session to talk about economic development project. And the other item is also associated, and we'll talk public about that item. However, there's some details of economic development project that we need to bring you up to speed on.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to go to executive session.
So moved.
First by the Mayor Pro Tem, second by Mr. John Roberts. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand in executive session.
You knew I had something.
Never mind.
I'd entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
First by Dr. Thompson.
Second.
Second by Mr. Jeff Roberts. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? In executive session, we had a recap from the administrative team of item D3. And that item is request consideration of a design and engineering contract for North Main Street Escape Project. Mr. Stewart.
I can see it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Senior man.
This item before you, as you mentioned, is a request to award the design and engineering contract for North Main Streetscape to Davis and Floyd out of Greenwood, South Carolina. This streetscape project would continue the downtown Main Street streetscaping where it ends currently at Tribble north to Calhoun, and then wrap the corner to a yet to be determined point on Calhoun Street, and then also design a pedestrian plaza as part of an economic development project that is under consideration. Staff recommends Davis and Floyd for this contract award.
Questions, comments, Mr. Jeff Roberts?
For the record, in public consumption, would you state your justification for not choosing the low bid?
Sure. So it's really important for staff to, and for this project specifically, to be done in a timely fashion. The apparent low bidder, in this case, Land Plan Group South, excellent company. They've done several projects for the city. We're concerned about their workload and the number of projects they currently have on the books with us, still in design, and the amount of time they can give to this project. Staff wasn't comfortable with the answers they gave when asked specifically, could they take on this project in the time constraints given. And so, again, for a similar marketable price, we recommend it.
Good. Any other questions, comments?
I don't know, we award this to Davis and Floyd.
Yeah, it was first by Dr. Thompson.
Second.
Second by the Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. We also in executive session got a briefing on discussion of negotiations incident to proposed contractual agreements. Information only, no action will be taken on the executive session item. I would have entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
First by Mr. Newton, second by Mr. Chapman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned.